All right, and welcome everybody. This is the P114 Filmmakers Podcast, Season 1, Episode 2. I'm your host, Jesse Knight.
Catherine Holmes.
And Tyler Schulte.
And we're here to talk about all things filmmaking. And today we're going to really concentrate on effects and how that affects us. Namely, sort of talking about like the use of practical effects and the use of digital effects, you know. And we're going to talk about all the sort of people's opinions on either one, the use of both, and sort of how we kind of feel on it. And kind of, I guess I can maybe start us off by kind of talking about sort of why I'm interested in effects. I grew up sort of in an artist household. My mom had taught art, and my dad's a crafts person. So I was around people building things my whole life, and I just always been drawn to that myself. Like as a kid, I had like a shoebox full of plasticine. Plasticine is the stuff that doesn't harden, but it's like clay, and you can make stuff out of it. And I used to make tons and tons of stuff out of that, out of regular clay, all kinds of stuff. Like my mom was taking art classes, and there's this process of doing bronze sculpture called lost wax. And basically you make your first representation of the figure is out of wax, and then you make a mold with it, burn the wax out, and pour the bronze in, and that's sort of what it does. But I'd always been building stuff since I was a kid. Always, like my main toys, I had a few action figures, but it was mainly like cardboard, tape, egg cartons, you know, all kinds of things like that. Whatever I could tape together and paint. And I've kind of held on to that, and as a kid, I really liked sort of the big epic movies that would show inevitably like miniatures and like models and how they incorporated that into like live action and stuff. Like there were a lot of like Greek myths and stuff that were done with like stop motion characters in them and stuff. Like I remember a big one in the 80s, which they've remade now with CGI creatures and stuff, but back then it was all stop motion, was Clash of the Titans. Mm-hmm. I don't know if y'all had ever seen that movie, but I really loved that movie as a kid because it had all these giant fantastic beasts in it and stuff, and they were all done in the old school way of stop motion, you know. And I did some research on the guy who was famous. You ever heard of a guy named Ray Harryhausen?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty famous. But he did, like there was one someone gave me this VHS tape called Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. But in that movie, it had all these really cool creatures. It had a dragon in it. It had a giant, like, bronze kind of golem kind of character, and all these kind of weird creatures. I think there was like a two-headed cyclops. I don't know. It was just which is kind of strange. But just all this neat stuff. I loved that stuff as a kid. So I kind of gravitated towards, like, I think I'd like to make those kinds of things, you know, because it's like living toys almost, I guess, was sort of my thought when I was a kid, you know. I did end up doing that kind of work later on when I was in grad school. I'd always built a few props and costumes and some parts of sets, but I went all out like on my master's thesis called Cancer Dreams, and I have a futuristic city, so I built out of cardboard and trash and Christmas lights and all this kind of stuff. I built all these different towers that put them together and arrange them, they look like a city, you know. And so I actually did it, you know, and I learned a lot from it. I was just shooting in 16 millimeter. I was just sort of guessing how to do these composites and stuff, but it turned out well. I wish I could have done more. I think I would have really pushed on to a new level doing that kind of stuff, but I liked it. And I ended up kind of doing it later on in my first feature F3, where I built a whole mountain range. Like a friend of our family's had like $10,000 worth of like ceramic baby doll parts. So what do you do with $10,000 of ceramic baby doll parts? You make the mountain range of hell that's going to be in your movie. So that's what I did. And now I made the movie, did the composites, and now all those giant pieces taller than myself are rotting in my parents' basement. Which usually, like, if the guy comes to spray for bugs, if they don't know if it's a new guy, they have to warn him because it's all these crazy looking things, you know. So we have to say, yes, we're not weird people. Well, you know, that's relative, but you know, it's like you know, made for art reasons and stuff. but I'd always enjoyed doing making things, and I guess I kind of gravitated towards the whole effects thing. And then we're talking about like what are the differences between practical effects, meaning things that are actually there that you can touch, that are real, as opposed to the digital effects, which both are trying to do sort of the same kind of thing. So I'm going to open up the floor to you guys on what are some impressions that y'all have about that world of effects? What do y'all have to say about it?
I first was really interested in it when I watched the Indiana Jones that we talked about last week.
Right.
And how everything looked real, everything was being reacted to,
Mm-hmm.
and then going and watching something that was heavily CG'd.
Right.
And it not having the same feel. I can't remember what it was, but
Right.
it was fairly CGI, and
Mhm.
the actors didn't react the same. I think it might have been Percy Jackson,
Okay.
like that, which did have practical effects as well as a
Right.
lot of CGI. It just
Sure.
wasn't blended really well.
Yeah.
But then I was reinterested in it when I watched the extended versions of The Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
With all the background of how they made the miniatures for everything.
Right.
That was big.
And how incredibly cool that was.
And they blended.
hmm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was
Oh yeah.
CGI is not useless and it's not awful.
Yeah. What was the?
But when it's blended, it's so much better.
Yeah.
And like the orcs in the first trilogy were all people
Right.
dressed as orcs.
Right. And I got to pause our podcast here. Back in, and we're back. Hey everybody. I'm gonna cut
Hey.
that out. But yeah. Okay. So where were we?
Talking about
So what was the?
well, the last thing we were talking
Yeah.
about was orcs.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings, and I think Lord of the Rings really, I think they perfected a lot of things in that movie. Like, of course, taking that huge story and making it manageable for 3 movies. I think they did that fairly successfully. You know, there's going to be
Yeah.
whining and moaning and complaining about this and that, but overall, not too bad. You know, not maybe, especially in comparison with their Hobbit
Especially
adventure
for
after
the
that.
2000s too.
Right,
Because a lot of those movies, when you watch them, they don't age well.
right,
Those will always age well. You can
Mhm.
watch that.
yeah.
You know. So that says something too.
For sure, and they put a lot of time and effort into that stuff. Like, what I was impressed with, I got the big giant fancy versions of those where it's like got the movie, but then it also has
It's
like I don't
3
know,
discs
like
Yeah.
of
10
behind the
hours of behind the scenes stuff, which I love as much as watching the movies themselves.
Mm.
You know, and everything basically that was in those movies they built, like all the costumes, all the sets, the interiors were, even like the exterior parts were at least partially done.
Can I
You know,
just
as a
say, like,
miniature or bigature is what they
the
call
Lord of the Rings, like the movies, the story.
them.
I'm so glad they made them into movies because I probably would never have been able to read those books.
Right.
Because they're so big and huge plots, you know.
Right.
And I was just thinking about that. I was like, I'm so glad they made these
Mm-hmm.
because it's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
But reading, it's a hard book.
A lot
you know what
less.
I mean? Like,
Reading
takes a lot of time.
is people still read, but the types of things we read are different than they used to. And back in the day, there were some movies, but books were really the main source of entertainment. You know, it was the written page.
I'm glad
we transitioned to this era.
they
you know.
did it by the book and did it right.
Mhm.
So I could, it proves that they did it right because in my school when I was in 5th grade we had this thing called AR where you had to read books and you took a test
Right.
and you got points and you had to do so many to
Mhm.
pass.
Right.
And I remember I needed 30 points and usually that takes you the whole year, right?
Right.
Well, the first Lord of the Rings book was 30 points.
Right.
It's a big book, Well, I just took the book, got it, watched the movie, took the test, made 100. Well, it kind of, I was like, wow, see, it's just like the book. But it
Mhm.
kind of backfired because then they gave me more harder books because they thought I was a really good reader.
Right.
So I did all the Harry Potters.
Yeah.
Eventually-
Those are written a little easier than.
And
I was running out of
movies.
books and movies,
Yeah.
but it just tells you they did a great job because I passed it.
Right.
Because
Right.
it was
Right.
by
Right.
the book.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just
They-
thought that was a funny.
Good thing Sharky's Revenge wasn't in that. I'd been like, what? What's that? Which is how that's the conclusion of the actual books,
What?
where the hobbits go back to their hometown and save it from Saruman, who didn't die earlier
Was that in the original Hobbit?
in the book, in Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
in the Lord of the Rings, they go and they celebrate, and all that, and they find the ring. But then they get home, and home has been taken over by Saruman and a whole bunch of his leftover orcs and stuff.
Grandma.
Yeah, Grime and Wormtongue.
I'm glad they didn't do that because that would have felt like,
yeah,
like it's over.
It worked in the book for whatever reason, but
yeah, not gonna read that.
Yeah,
man, not have to read it.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's good.
How does the Hobbit ending? How does that change? Is it the same?
It's pretty much, yeah. You had the Battle of Five Armies, and after that,
that's all in the book.
That's
It's pretty boring.
Yeah, and that's kind of it.
That movie's a good example of CGI done poorly bad. The worst shot, and it's so funny because my mom, she's such a diehard fan of Lord of the Rings. She's the one that bought the big book.
Right.
She did not buy any of the Hobbits because she can't stand it, the CGI, and it takes her out of it, and she hates it. Right. And the worst part is when Legolas is riding that horse on the dock. Go back and look. You can probably look it up. It looks so bad.
Right.
And I was amazed when I was in theaters and I saw that. I was like, whoa. Did someone forget to add 2 extra layers? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was really like, whoa.
Seemed like they had less time for planning for The Hobbit. They just kind of rushed in. And they even, the filmmakers talk about it, and I'm like, oh, okay. But in The Lord of the Rings, they spent a long time on development. 3 or 4 years. I don't know how long they spent on the script. That could have been a while.
Yeah.
And then when they started like growing the vegetables and making the place look like it'd been there forever, when they started working on the Shire early on, and because it's going to be this place is going to be ready in about a year. We got to make it look lived in. It just seems.
I know.
Like it took more time.
I watched something on Peter Jackson about the 5 battle army thing, and he talked about how he had to make it up kind of as he went. Yeah. And he called the studio, and he got a 3-month break so he could plan it. Right. But he is someone to respect as a filmmaker because that kind of movie, that kind of scope, someone making it up as they go, that's hard. That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. And Hobbit movies, I mean, I don't really care as much because it's not really Lord of the Rings, but he still pulled it off where it's like, hey, it's enjoyable. Right. But one thing that really works, I think, for the Hobbit movies is the casting. I love the it's
casting.
Right on.
Yeah.
Like my favorite scene is the dinner scene.
Right, at the beginning, and
just the beginning.
And that's all in the book.
That is
crack
well
the dishes,
done.
crack the plates. That's what
opens
it's
my heart.
It's always better when you follow the book diligently.
Yes.
If it had been 2 movies, I think it would have worked.
It should have been. It should have been 2 movies.
It should have been.
I was done when the dragon died, and I was like, he should have died in the other movie.
Right.
And you could have just ended it there because it's not about big.
And it's not a big giant.
It's just it would have done good as a small story. Yeah. That's what it is.
It could be done in 1 or 2 movies.
That's okay. We all would have been fine. We didn't need a trilogy.
No. Trilogy's like, that's too much.
I wish I could go back in time and just like, no.
Yeah. The cartoon version's actually not too bad. It's completely abbreviated, but it's not so bad as The Hobbit,
I watched it way before The Hobbit was being announced.
They completely skipped Bjorn.
Yeah, they did. Totally. Yeah, you don't.
But then the Gollum freaked me
great.
out more than the Andy Serkis's Gollum.
Yeah, scarier because he's more like.
And the goblins looked cool.
Now Gollum is very good CGI.
Yeah.
He's well done.
Yeah, they spent a long time with him. Plus, they already had him kind of pre-built in Lord of the Rings, so they already had that CGI character, which is
very, very good.
Which they did really good with in that. Yeah.
Plus, Andy Serkis is a genius.
Okay, since we're talking about these, what's kind of interesting is the whole Gandalf relationship with the other characters. The first movie, everybody's together. You see who you're acting with, right? Mm-hmm. Which helps as an actor. That really helps you act, being able to feed off of the people.
Poor Ian McKellen in a room by himself.
It was traumatic for the guy. Yeah.
You just see him. It was a behind the scenes in the first movie, and. He's crying.
He's in tears because he can't act.
It's not fun at all.
He's got little posts that light up, and they're supposed to represent different dwarves when they say their lines, so you can face each one and do that.
What?
And they had 2 sets. One is a green screen cube, basically, with little posts that are supposed to be the dwarves, and you got Ian McKellen in there acting to that. Then you have a set with the actual actor dwarves on it, but Ian McKellen's up here. A dwarf is going to be probably about here.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that tall, something like that. So they can't have him in the same space as them. So what they did was they figured out like the CGI is ingenious how they did it.
Yeah.
But, and it looks like he's there. That scene and with the Gandalf there and them, it does work. Though I know that was a major pain in the blank for Ian McKellen. And then to do that, I can't imagine acting to just a void of like little blinking light.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah. It's pretty good. You can find it on YouTube, I think, and then the special edition of the discs.
So throughout the whole movie?
In it. Just in certain scenes where they need to do that. I'm sure they went to their regular things. Like if it's a wide shot, they're going to get little people putting on the clothes who are going to walk with them. Close-ups, they're going to do stuff like kind of forced perspective.
Did in the Lord of the Rings. And then they also, for the tavern scene in the first Lord of the Rings movie, they had mechanical
they had the dude on the
suits.
stilt things walking by. Yeah.
Which was incredible. And you don't even notice it.
No.
You just notice that they look tiny.
Yeah.
And this person walking past them looks large.
And some of the, like there's a table and they have, it's like different parts of it move as the camera on a dolly moves, so it keeps that perspective. It looks really, like that's where my mind jumps off the cliff and says, okay, I don't know how to figure that stuff out, but that's really cool.
That was what made, I think, the Lord of the Rings so much better than the Hobbit.
And they did all different kinds of things to bring those shots together. They used all kinds of stuff. Like you hear about, also a good franchise to kind of look at are the Jurassic Park movies. Same kind of discussions you can have in that first movie, which actually I like the dinosaurs in it, maybe the best, but it's been a while, I don't know. But they used a mix of stuff. They used, if it was a close-up, they'd use a real practical model that they built and stuff like that. And then if it was a shot of the big beast all together, probably CGI, you know. But there seemed to be something like, it looked like it was really well done, and maybe it was the type of shots they chose, you know, like I remember like the big wide shot where you first see the dinosaurs and they're looking at them from the Jeep or whatever, and it's like a herd of like brontosauruses and then, you know, all these different groups, and it looks, I'd never seen anything like that at that time. What was that, in the 90s or something? You know, I was just about done with high school, I think, when they came out. But then like the later movies where it's like everything was sort of done, I think, in CGI, it just didn't have as, I don't know, they didn't leave that big of an impression on me. But I'm wondering if it's like I already saw it, it's really not going to wow me a second time. You know, I wonder if that's what's going on. It could be a blend of each. I don't know.
I know this is kind of off topic, but I really liked the second Jurassic Park movie.
Right. It wasn't bad.
I actually thought it wasn't that bad. The only part that's kind of is when the dinosaurs on the main island, you know, with all the people. But I don't know. I kind of liked the Turner. The tracker? The guy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Right. They. What's funny is from the book, it opens with a scene that's at the beginning of the first book, in the second movie.
Oh.
It's kind of weird.
Cool.
They kind of shifted some stuff around, but you know, it works. Yeah. But in the first one, I know they used a lot more practical effects. The dead Triceratops, or the sick Triceratops, is a real, what is it? Hydraulically controlled animatronic sculpture.
Did they do that in the third one with the Spinosaurus? Was he?
Maybe.
He was, right?
They may have done some practical stuff with them too. Yeah, and for the first one though, I know it was a debate. Like it was sort of the question: should we do them all CGI or practical? So Spielberg put his people to the test.
It's best to mix.
I think so.
Jurassic World did that, and it was good. They mixed it up.
Right. So they used both in Jurassic World.
Yeah, like the long neck one, the dying one. That was real.
Right.
Yes, the long neck thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking from what's the little kids dinosaur movie?
The
Babe?
Friendly Dinosaur?
Yeah, the friendly dinosaur, the little guy.
The Good Dinosaur. The Good Dinosaur.
No, not the Good Dinosaur. It's a cartoon, old cartoon.
Talk about The Land Before Time?
Land Before Time. They
made like 20 of those.
Long necks and what was it? Sharp tooths.
Oh yeah.
I watched those all as a kid. So I remember I watched Jurassic Park and I was like, that's a sharp tooth.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
The long neck.
Yeah. These first few movies were well done.
The first one I saw that I was like.
Then as usual, there's less of a budget for the sequel,
Oh, yeah.
so you can really tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that
childhood. My mom had them all.
Yeah, yeah.
My childhood was Oliver and Company and Beauty and the Beast.
Mm.
Oh yeah. I wonder if I bet Oliver and Company had a few. I bet some of those animal movies for like close-ups where you see a paw come up and touch somebody. I don't know if that happens in that movie at all, but I'm wondering. Sometimes they'll use puppet parts for creatures.
Maybe
and
you
stuff.
see the new movie, the Winnie the Pooh live action movie.
Oh, Christopher Robin. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it, but
That's really
the
good.
puppets. There was they had real puppets and they were moving.
Okay, so
I saw behind the scenes of that.
Okay, cool.
So they mixed that together.
Cool. It's interesting. You think like
Yeah, I thought it was all CGI, but
everything would be all CGI, but you get stuff like that. Then you get what was it? Wes Anderson will do some stop motion stuff that's like
I love
his
Wes
last
Anderson.
one about. I haven't seen it, but it's something about dogs.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
It's good, but the one you need to watch is Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, and it's all practical, all stop motion.
Me and my
Right?
brother love that movie.
Yeah, I need to see those. Those are good. I like his framing. It's so
I know.
weird.
I love his view. Like I love how his dialogue and all that.
Mhm.
I love it. It's so funny and weird. It's just.
Yeah, colors, the compositions are always.
I gotta
kind of
watch this
interesting.
movie. It's about a hotel.
Yeah, Grand Budapest Hotel.
I need to see
it's
that.
great.
I
It's
actually
great.
own it now.
Really?
Yeah.
I have got to go get that.
It's good, and the Darjeeling Limited before that, they're similar
Yeah.
almost in feeling. It's worth checking out too.
Nice.
Darjeeling, you're on a train, and it's about people on a train. The other one's
Yeah.
different, but it's almost like it's the same world, though. Kind of weird. The first movie he did, Rushmore, was like, and then after that he did, the one where Gene Hackman's the father. And it's about this family. Anyway, I can't remember the name of it.
You say Gene Hackman, and I immediately think of Burt Macklin.
Oh yeah.
It rhymes. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think for like effects though and practical, I think what really blows my mind away is always the Wallace and Gromit like claymation.
Oh yeah.
The things they can
Anything
pull off with
Hackman
that.
ever made.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching the trouser one.
Oh
like,
yeah,
best
the wrong
one,
trousers. Yeah.
Where the penguin's
That's a
throwing the
great
tracks.
one.
He's like,
Yeah.
and that's all stop motion. Like,
Yeah.
what are you?
And it,
How many months did it take you to do that?
Like
Years.
it's amazing. Like
it is.
it blows me away that they did. Like,
And to
you
go
could do
inside that studio where they make that would be just like the best.
I'd be like a kid in a
Yeah.
toy store. Like,
Yeah.
Just like what?
It'd be great.
I'd probably be moving things. They'd be like, no,
And
you ruined it. I'm like,
And they rebuilt that studio.
That's
The original
so
studio burned down to the ground.
Yeah, I
They
know, I
lost
saw
everything, and they had to rebuild.
I rewatched Curse of the Were Rabbit again because I remember seeing
Yeah.
it as a kid, and
Yeah.
it still puts a smile on my face.
It's
Like,
great.
it's still
Even
good.
the sheep ones, he did a little series.
Shaun the Sheep.
Shaun the Sheep.
I
Those
saw
are
the
great.
Silent Sheep movie
Mhm.
earlier. It was pretty good, but
Right.
I wish they'd go back and make Wallace and Gromit. Like
Right.
I don't
Those
know
characters
why
are
not.
great.
They're not doing. If I had money, I'd buy that and make some more of those.
I bet he will. I bet they'll
'Cause
make some more.
That's their best.
Mhm.
Those characters are great.
They're
you
just
know.
so unusual,
Just-
you know.
I just like Wednesday day. Like
Sort of making fun of British culture a little bit.
Yeah,
in
it's
a good way.
it's
you
a
know?
good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
all their movies, like the four I think they've had, all just classics.
Right. What's the one with the chickens and
Chicken
Run?
Chicken Run.
Yeah,
That's another
that
great.
was a good one.
They're
Yeah.
making Chicken Run 2.
Ah,
It is coming,
cool.
so that'd be cool to see.
Cool.
That's another
yeah.
fantastic
I like
movie.
the
Yeah.
pirate one because whenever like what was the Pirate King, was that the name of it?
Maybe
then
I saw it a
the-
long time.
Oh,
The
I haven't seen
captain
that.
had a curly beard, and every time he moved, like the curls
Yes.
would move.
Like that's
Oh,
just
wow.
Aardman,
It's so
showing off.
Right.
beautiful.
It's them showing off. Like
Yeah.
look what we can do.
I mean, I grew up watching. Y'all probably seen it too. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the stop
yeah,
motion
yeah.
one. I was fascinated by that as a kid, and it was before cable, so it came on one time a year.
Mm.
So I've seen it, almost every year as a kid. I'd get mad if I missed it. But stuff like that, and just really full of detail, full of movement. It still works. It's just weird. People in the 50s and 60s were strange folk.
Wallace and Gromit was ahead of its time.
Definitely.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's.
I sucks. I need to go buy them on DVD because my mom has them on the old VGHS.
Right.
So I need to go buy it because I'd love to watch that again.
Oh yeah. I bet the DVDs or Blu-rays you get would have a ton of nice special features
Yeah,
too in
it'd be
that.
great.
Yeah, I'd like to see that studio. It'd be neat.
See, there was the moon one,
Mm-hmm.
trousers,
Mm-hmm.
then the shaving,
Right.
And then the Bakers.
Then the Bakers, and then the movie.
Have y'all seen A Muppet Christmas Carol?
Yes.
Yes, my mom and grandfather and all them love that movie.
Yeah.
I've seen it a
episode
couple
of the
times.
Muppets.
Yeah, my dad loved that movie too. He watched it a lot before he passed. But what was interesting about it, talking about practical effects and CGI, is predominantly practical effects in that movie. But there's one ghost, I believe it was the ghost. It might have been the Ghost of Christmas Presents. I can't remember, but it was just this ghost of a female girl, like just sort of floating. And I was like, okay, that was done CGI, but I think they did a puppet, and the CGI I think is really. I got to do my research. Either they did that whole thing as a CGI and then they made it a see-through transparent ghost in the shot, or they took a puppet, photographed it, then kind of worked with it on a computer and then put it in as a layer in that. I'm not sure which, but it looked like they were kind of toying with that, like an all CGI versus a regular just puppet, So that was kind of interesting to see that. In that movie, everything is essentially like a special effect, how those movies kind of work, the sets and the puppets and all of that. You can go back early in time to even the old black and white days. You can go to the 20s and look at Metropolis, which they did a lot of special effects and miniatures and stuff in that movie, which I honestly think are still pretty impressive.
I remember seeing something on Instagram. I follow these movie things that gives me all these cool little things. It was a black and white movie, and he was like this, about to fall in a pit.
Right.
And then they yelled cut, and he stopped. And then it was in front of the camera was the pit.
Right.
The way it looked, so it looked like it was on the ground.
Right.
And they just moved it, and there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was very cool back then.
Matte, they would do, like, matte paintings were adjusted, and they were painted on glass, even in the old Star Wars movies, and they'd compose the shot, and then they would move it in and line it up, and it'd look like it's all part of one shot. Or they'd do early composites, so they'd shoot different layers, and then they had this really expensive machine that would take those different clips of film that were shot, and it would line them up that way, and then shoot another roll of film to get the composite shot that way. I forget what the name of those kind of giant machines were. It's funny how technology is. The machines probably cost couple $100,000 or $1 million or something, totally useless today, not even used. But for a short time of 5-10 years, that's what they used. I forgot what the name of that thing was too. Anyway, it'll come back to me. But compositing has been around a while. So you think of like early stuff like Metropolis. And then you got simple stuff like the Wolfman, the first black and white Wolfman, classic Universal Monsters movie, but. You've seen the transition where he goes from a regular human to a werewolf face, and really it's just makeup, and all they do is do dissolves from one makeup to the next, but they make them almost kind of morph. I mean, they didn't have that tech back then, but for the time, not bad.
Yeah.
I would still do that today for some things.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. But I guess the reason we like. So we all kind of do y'all have a preference for practical or digital?
I always love practical more than.
If I'm someone who's going to use them, I'm using them both.
Right.
I like to use both.
And they're both for different reasons. Practical stuff, it's there. It seems it's a real thing. There are things you can do to add life to it in CGI. I can see that, but I think too much CGI, you could be in danger of taking its life away and just creating a painting.
I remember somebody had done a commentary about Treasure Planet.
Right.
And they had this thing called 70-30, where you could have 70% of it, 70% of the movie be like old-timey.
Right.
And then the 30% you could have spaceshipy, otherworldly.
Right.
I think that's a good ratio for practical versus CGI.
Okay, yeah. So you want at least 70% of it to be a real thing, and then if you need to deck it out with some...
Then you have that nice chunk of 30%.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. The things that throw me off are when both characters are CGI and you're going in close. Like sometimes in like really far shots, you can have that going on. It's not a big deal. Some of the Star Wars movies have tiny versions of the people fighting. That doesn't really bother me so much. When you get in close, though, Yoda's a cartoon in those movies. Yoda's not this. That was the hard part, was figuring out Yoda. And every time they'd re-release the movie, Yoda looked a little bit different. It's kind of funny to look at side by side online all the different looks of Yoda. The best, honestly, is that for whatever reason, that silly little puppet they made for Empire Strikes Back.
I agree.
It just looks, there's more emotion in that thing, and it just seemed more real.
He looked good.
But you could tell it's a puppet too. It's just kind of weird, but it's alive. It becomes a programming issue in the brain.
Did you see those in theater?
I did. I had missed Empire Strikes Back when it first came out, but they re-released them to the theaters when I was in college, and I saw that then.
I wanted to know because going into that, you know how they talked about the Master Yoda, like this ultimate Jedi?
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you saw what he looked like?
I already knew I guess I was fine with it because I'd read all the comics. I couldn't see the movie, but I was devouring. Like I had the movie book with all the photographs from it.
10 steps ahead of the movie.
Yeah. I just had accepted Yoda as what he was.
I'm just curious people's reactions to that. Like, what?
Yeah,
That's Yoda?
Oh yeah, and it was great. It really, people would see that movie and they're like, I too can have the Force, which was totally ruined in episode 1, 2, and 3, midichlorians, whatever. But I just don't. I can kind of take that out of those movies. There's the good stuff. Qui-Gon should have lived, or
he was an interesting character.
Or Darth Maul should have lived, and that would have been the driving force for that. But we're in danger of getting into a fan person argument here, but not argument. But
I think the reason the other three worked well is because Darth Vader's developed in all three of them.
Right.
And you like the villain that you can see.
And there's nothing CGI about Vader at all.
Nah. So I think Darth Maul would have been a great counter to Vader. Because, he dies and then you're introduced to another new one.
Yeah, and then that's the problem with all the new Star Wars movies. I don't really care that your ship is the size of the universe. I really don't.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys are going to die anyway. It doesn't really matter. That's sort of how I feel watching it. So, I'm hoping that the Mandalorian series will be good. Because we need to go in deep with just some characters and have character development.
Yeah,
I don't need to see another damn a Death Star. I'm done.
I want to see some characters that are like... That's why I liked Rogue One. It wasn't any Force users.
Right.
I like the normal... Because again, now everyone can use the Force, so I want to see the people I can relate to in that world.
Exactly.
How they work.
And there's got to be more interest than just becoming a Jedi.
Yeah, if Disney's listening to this, just give us Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I want to see the Boba Fett film.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be so good if they do it right.
Yeah.
And did you know, I don't know, a lot of people, you probably know this, he didn't die in the 6th movie? I don't know if it's canon, it might be. There's a comic.
Yeah, they have him escape from the Sarlacc
I read it.
pit.
He gets out, and it's so badass.
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't it didn't grab onto him. He fell in.
Right.
And so it shows him, he's in there, and he sees all his friends and all his guys dying, slowly getting devoured. But he's in there, and he's fixing his jetpack, and he shoots, the missile?
Yeah.
Blows it up, and he flies out.
Yeah.
And he lands in the desert, and he just goes like this, and you just see his spaceship coming in.
Right.
And I was like, if you make a Boba Fett movie, you have it during the beginning, back during the Empire Strikes Back, those days.
Escape,
Then you do an end credit scene, and you show that. So then, with the new movies, you have the knowledge that there's a Boba Fett out there, doing something.
Right.
That is cool. That is how you do it right there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Keep them existing. Bring them back if you want to.
Sure.
But I think that's how you do it.
When they originally had Boba Fett talk in Empire Strikes Back, they had him sound just like Clint Eastwood in a Man with No Name Western, Then they changed him, for he's Jango Fett,
I love how that character was just there. He just was in the background, right? He didn't really do much, but people loved him.
Who, Django?
No,
Boba. Boba didn't do anything. Nothing.
People just loved it.
He died, or got hurt, and that's it.
Like,
Cool.
But he looked cool. That was the thing,
And he lingered on the occasion.
Yeah. Is the lingering and looking cool can get you pretty far.
Yeah, it's amazing. I saw also
Posturing.
early
Try
concept.
that in life.
He was
It
in
works.
all white, and he was going to be like the leader of the clone troopers. In
Right.
all white.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking, man, bring him back, you know, in the new movies, bring him in all white now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a comic where he works for the good guys
Right.
because they pay him more,
Huh.
and he helps the good guys.
Huh.
And it's such a cool story because now Boba Fett is working with the good guys.
Right.
And Boba Fett doesn't give a damn
He's
about
a mercenary.
sides, you know. He's
a
whoever's paying.
mercenary, yeah.
So then he's helping the rebels, you know, and it's such a cool
Right.
idea. Like I wish I would do that.
Right. And the thing
You
is
can
too,
do
he's
it.
got a Mandalorian helmet, but he probably wasn't Mandalorian.
No,
he
he
just
probably-
got it.
Stole it or
Hmm. And the Mandalorians are kind of interesting.
I don't know nothing about that.
They were apparently, sorry folks, they were apparently like sort of like the Empire, but way back in the history, they had a huge, military. They were
Okay.
kind of a military race and that kind of thing, and they're kind of tried to, take over the galaxy or do that
so
kind of stuff.
Django, was he one of those?
I don't think so.
So
I think he ended up with the armor somehow. It's armor that's Mandalorian, but I
Okay.
don't know. I could be wrong.
Very cool.
I'm
Very
sure there's all kinds of stuff written about
I'm
that.
very
Maybe he
interested in
indeed was, but from what I've heard, just the little tidbits like that's just armor he acquired.
It's kind of cool. I like that. It's got a
And it
story.
was sort of like showing a vestige of an older age,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. All right, so what else can we say about practical effects and CGI and that kind of thing?
Well, General Grievous looked pretty good, and I'm guessing
And
he
he's
was all CGI.
Yeah, he's all CGI.
But he
yeah.
looked great.
Mm-hmm.
He worked. He looked like he was really there.
You wonder if there's sometimes a CGI character can be completely solid.
How-
Gollum is pretty good.
Yeah, another great Star Wars character that
Yeah,
kills
yeah.
so fast. I was like, I want to know more about him.
But Grievous, interesting. He seemed, instead of metal, sort of like a ceramic plastic.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he felt
Yeah,
like. A lot of things
definitely.
in that kind of felt like that.
It's just-
But cool character. I kind of like how they brought him back into the Clone Wars cartoon quite a bit.
I saw the old one where he kills all the Jedi
Mm-hmm.
when they walk into that crash ship in the desert,
Uh-huh.
and it shows you how he kills them.
Right.
Like I was like, can we just get a rated R General Grievous?
Yeah, for real.
And I read about his backstory and realized, he was a real, not just a robot.
Yeah.
And saved, and the coughing is one
Just
of
his
the things that he
alien
had.
bit still alive,
Like,
yeah.
It's
Mhm.
such a cool thing.
Yeah, that's neat.
Stories they
Yeah.
should be telling.
Yeah. And it's looking at what we know. We're going to have people that are half machine in the future, no
Yeah.
doubt. It's just what we do.
But yeah, he
Is
looked
it a good
great.
thing or a bad thing? Well, it's not really our problem, really, to think about right now.
I'm trying to think. Another movie that had good. Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, was all practical.
Yeah, I
and
saw the
it's
city when they built the city.
gorgeous,
All
ahead
the
of
wires,
its time.
and
Even it looks better than stuff I've seen today. And honestly, that movie set a precedence for how sort of. Have you heard of the term cyberpunk? It's kind of
Yes,
gone now,
yes.
but it definitely
There's a
set up that look,
cool
that
game coming
feeling.
out.
Yeah,
Cyberpunk that looks just
Mhm.
like Blade Runner City.
yeah, and it's what's it called? I think I know the guy. I work with the guy that does.
Cyberpunk 2077, I think. It's the
Okay.
guys who made The Witcher,
Okay,
which is, again, if you ever play games, play The Witcher.
Witcher. Yeah.
Great story. They're making that into a Netflix show now.
Oh, okay, right on.
Makes me kind of mad because
The OG.
I wanted to do that.
Right,
I
that's
had it written
happens.
down in my notes, like, I'll make the Witcher series.
Man, I had 10 years where I thought for sure I was going to do Lord of the Rings. Nope.
That's funny.
It's like no one's.
Makes you
done
feel
it.
good, though, because you have the right ideas.
Mhm.
You know, people want.
Now I don't need to waste my time on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, they don't need. No one needs to reboot
Somebody
that.
already went through all the stress and pain and misery.
I
And
can
now
only
they're still going
imagine
through the
that.
strain, the
If
pain
I
and
was him,
misery
I
from
would have
it,
just
too.
retired after that. You did a great thing. You know, like.
I would just make whatever the hell I wanted to after that.
Yeah, like,
I'd
do
make
something
little.
small.
I'd just make little small movies with my friends.
Like, I would have just took a break. I've been like George and Steven when they went to Hawaii after the Star Wars. You know, just like, I did what I said I was going to do. I'm just going to sit here now.
Oh yeah. And you can get away with like practical effects, like crowd scenes. Going to Dunkirk, for instance. You could probably put little tiny like CGI people running around. Maybe they had that, but I don't think they did it. They used a lot of real people, but they would do in some shots. You can just stick basically a pole with a helmet and a jacket on it,
Yeah, well, like back to Blade Runner, they just put the camera right in with the crowd.
Yeah.
And there wasn't that many people at all.
No.
But it just
felt crowded.
It felt crowded.
It did.
And
in the
that's what they
streets
did a lot.
Stuff.
It was literally like, I think they had like 15 or 30 people.
But you just have someone near the camera, mask it,
and they just
have
put
people
it there.
busy walking.
And they had a lot of noise.
Like have a narrow depth of field.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got that little bit that's in focus. As soon as it's out of focus.
Yeah.
That like Cronenworth, I think, was the DP on the first Blade Runner. He's one of my favorites. Like the colors, the atmospherics. Yeah. It's different than Deacon's Blade Runner 2049. It's cleaner. It's more. Here's the thing. You mentioned something kind of funny about the first one. Crowded. There are people there. The next one almost seemed devoid of people. Have you seen the new one?
Mm-mm.
I've seen bits. I need to get to seeing it.
It feels like, and they never really talk about it, but it seems like humans are kind of dying off.
Huh.
And it's leaving these machines to kind of figure out their purpose.
Wow.
Which is kind of, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll be in the same predicament we are. What's our purpose? I don't know. We come up with things and constructs to fit that, which ease our minds. But
mm-hmm.
it's interesting. I like the big, bold questions of futuristic movies. Going to effects, the original Terminator. Let's talk about Terminator a little bit. Terminator and T2. Okay, first Terminator, great story, nice. Simple, easy to follow, perfect sci-fi kind of venture. The effects in it are great, but it's all like models and animatronic kind of stuff and all that, which they totally used in T2 except for the T2 thing itself, which was a really good use of an all CGI kind of character, I think. Totally practical that you have it as an actor, but those sequences where he turns into the blob and back. I mean, that works pretty well.
It's not bad.
That's pretty interesting. Can any of you name a James Cameron film before T2 where they really kind of dabbled with that effect before they did T2? Just a little trivia. Not to be confused with Deep Star 6 or Leviathan, if that helps out. Because they had all these movies that were basically the same movie, but they all came out around the same time. So you got Deep Star 6, Leviathan, and then maybe a year or two later, this one came out. You ever heard of The Abyss?
That's what I was about to say. Yep. I couldn't think of it. I was thinking the big giant hole.
Yeah.
And I was going to say
The Abyss.
Big hole, and I was like, what was it? I meant the producer at a church thing.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
The Abyss.
We talked about how they made it and how hard it was.
And it was a successful movie. It did really good. But it's like this water that was controlled, which sort of looks like the T2000, I guess.
Yeah,
or whatever
T2000.
Yeah. It was the same kind of thing, except instead of clear water, it was that chrome stuff, But it's like, because the water went up to someone's face, and then it turned into their face in the water, and then it's essentially what he's done as a blob in T2. Like he's in the chopper as a blob, and he turns into the pilot, and he looks at the pilot, and the pilot jumps out, He's like, get out, Yeah. But I think that's a really good use of CG effects. And that they're clever too. When it moves or shifts or changes, it's CGI, but then all those metal, like when his hands turn into like these like metal like hooks or whatever, those are actually real prosthetics. They slip on.
Oh, cool.
So there is a changeover to those kinds of things. So he has these weird kind of puppet arms where he's running, and it's the one where he's chasing the car and he grabs it and hangs onto it and stuff. Or the knife going through the mouth of the dude drinking the milk in the kitchen early on when he turns. I met the actress actually. She was in Aliens. Mm-hmm. She was the Latino chick with the giant gun. Vasquez. Yeah.
That's cool.
She's not Latino, but it didn't matter. She played one. But she was also the woman, the mother of the kid in T2 who kills her husband.
Did you get her to act in one of your things?
I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be great, but it's probably not going to happen, but who knows? but I met her, and I met, Hicks, who's, Not Michael Biehn, but something like that.
It's cool.
Yeah. Or maybe it is Michael Biehn.
Actors.
Just go to any con and you'll meet some actors.
I need to start doing.
Yeah, and they're all over the place. You know, just look up festivals and conventions. You know, wherever you live locally that you want to look around. Tons are always in Charlotte. They're always neat, and they have a mix of everybody. Have you been to some?
I haven't, but I know a great many actors, and a lot of them who have
I want to go to the San Diego one.
Been in films.
Oh yeah, and then they'll sometimes go to
and
those
have
cons.
made their own films even too.
I might try to do that this year.
Yeah. Did I ask you this? Do you know Michael Williams?
I might.
Okay.
It rings a bell.
And his wife, Margaret Alice.
I feel like I probably do.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff now at Studio One at in Hillsborough.
Yes, I definitely know them. Yes,
Yeah, she got red hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she's lovely.
Yeah. And he's looked like all kinds of people. When I first met him, he looked like Jim Morrison from The Doors.
Oh, wow.
He had that look going on. And then he's kind of turned, sometimes he'll look like Val Kilmer in certain movies and stuff, you know. But just one of those actors who's a little bit pliable. He can play different people. He's done a really good, what's the one about the murderous dentist? Oh, jeez. It's like it's a famous stage play. He plays the guy. I don't know if you'd know it. Or I think you'd know it. They made a movie about it a while ago.
Not a dentist.
Or wait, is he hairdresser?
Shaver.
Oh, shaver. Yeah.
So Johnny Depp.
Sweeney Todd. That's it.
Yeah, not a dentist.
Yeah, barber.
Yeah,
A barber. Yeah.
Street.
Sorry. I'm pulling the guy from Little Shop of Horrors.
I was about to say.
Steve Martin.
I was literally trying to think a dentist killer movie. I haven't seen that, but I want
Let's
to
make it.
Yeah. That would be good. I always have a horror about my teeth, so. Yeah, we could have CG and practical teeth. Yeah.
Why do you have a flamethrower?
That's fun.
All right, so not bad. We're at 47 minutes. We can kind of, I guess, conclude. Doesn't have to be like a 2-hour episode or anything like that. But I think we're sort of at the general consensus that most people are on, that we kind of prefer the practical effects, but when CGI is done right and it works, it's good. Sort of the polycotton blend of both seem to be the best way to go in this way. I can think of some issues with practical effects, like and CGI in the remake of The Thing. In that I heard a good podcast, and the guys that did the effects, they actually did all practical effects for The Thing, because the original, the remake that Carpenter did in the 80s is famous for that practical effects scene where it's just going crazy, and the creature's like eating everybody and turning into everything, and it's just crazy. And they did some really neat stuff like that to kind of one-up it, but then in the end, for whatever reason, the people behind the movie just painted them over with these, and the creatures look cool, but they all look the same. They weren't creative. After you've seen one, you've seen it every time after that, so it doesn't matter, you know. So they kind of, I don't know, I think they kind of shouldn't have done that. I think they should have left it kind of crazy, because the cool thing about The Thing, the Carpenter one, is I don't know what's going to happen next. The creature doesn't have an identifiable look because it pulls on from whatever it takes from. So it's kind of neat. In this case, the creature just sort of stayed like a human, but then they'd open up like a zipper and it'd be the creature, you know. So it was just like, it didn't look bad, but I was just like,
the
just
remake
could have been
was
a little
prequel,
more.
so.
And I didn't hate the remake.
I wonder.
Yeah, I thought it was well made.
That movie could go anywhere. I should think about that.
Yeah. So I guess we're sort of nearing the end of our episode. Is there anything else anybody'd like to add before I shut it down?
No, I'm good.
All right.
70-30, support it.
70-30, support it. You heard it here first, folks. I guess that's it. We're out of here.